This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
And welcome back, everyone. Imagine this for a moment. If you could, almost like a sci-fi show or something you've seen on TV, where you could create a force field of positivity around you that repels that negative stuff out there. Put a positive spin on things. It is possible. We're going to talk about that. And I right away, I'm detecting and feeling, people saying, oh, you're just so positive all the time. You don't really know what's going on. We're going to address that as well. She is the owner of Infinite Healing and Wellness and author of Mastering Self, and provides so much insight on many different modalities, including this positive energy thing. So great to have her back with us, Colleen Brindley, on the program. How are you doing today?
Hi, so nice to be here. Hi, Steve. Thank you. Wonderful. Great. It's a great day. It's a peaceful day, but as we know, not everyone has peace in their life every day. And it used to drive me crazy for the Pollyannas. Oh, be happy, be positive, peace on earth. That really didn't feel well as I went through different life obstacles. And so I'm so glad that you brought that up because, yes, peaceful energy is so strong and can move mountains. And so certainly we need consistent practices to put us into that space. But then we do need to be real. We're all real people dealing with sickness and death and grief and loss and change. So how do we do this? Has been something that I've been on a journey seeking to understand energy, understand how to move into a peaceful, harmonious state. And so I have lots of ideas and I love to share those. But again, it's easy to say when we're not in that depths of stress.
Is it a mindset? Like, for example, you just look at things differently or you ride on the positive side of things. Is it just a mindset? And now for the naysayers, I haven't used that word in forever. Are you just ignoring the negative? That's out there. Things present. And some would say, well, you're not being a realist. Yeah, rose-colored glasses going on. How would you address both of those?
Well, and again, I understand the bigger picture. And so I do believe certain things we experience almost for a shakeup to jolt us out of whatever, dome we're in, whatever field we're in. And so my dad was a young man, 60 years old. He had a heart attack and died. Huge.
We've talked about that. Mine, 58, and just dropped. Yeah. And he was perfect health, active, came out of nowhere.
And so there was no blame, but there certainly was a process, right? We couldn't understand it. Doctors weren't to blame. He wasn't to blame. What is this? What is this grief? You go through this process of loss, of sadness, of anger, of denial, shock, bargaining. How do you deal with this? How can I be positive when this jolted things 360 degrees? Couldn't make sense of it. And I find, being on Earth, I do believe the perspective that Earth is a place with these challenges, with grief, with loss, with change. And so that perspective puts me in a position of not being totally surprised as things come my way. So with that perspective, okay, how do I process that? Because it's going to show up. And when we work with clients as spiritual life coaches here, we say, stress is part of Earth. All emotions, especially grief, is part of Earth. But let's figure out how to process those things. So we're not going too low, getting stuck. So my thing is, I'm real, but if we get stuck for a week, a month, a year without action, without living life, that's really painful. So I think the positivity comes from I'm going to feel those emotions, happy, sad, angry, but I'm going to try to moderate it so that it's not lasting years upon years. And my mom, being in her 50s, she went years and years in that grief state, not being able to live and love and be her highest self. So my job, I always say, is to moderate that with some day-to-day consistent practices, to shake that emotion. So as we look at the world, we see anger, division, so how do I add to that anger, that division, or do I say, okay, I'm going to process my emotions. I'm going to do certain things. So what are those certain things? And most people that know me know the first thing I say is go exercise. You got to shake, you got to move, you got to put music on, you got to flip that energy, because you don't really have control over other people, over situations. But the one thing you can do is to do you. And so we always come back to mastering self, putting yourself in a state of peace, harmony, gratitude. Not easy, definitely not easy. My son and I built a walking labyrinth. It's the infinity symbol with two big hearts. And so we just got on Labyrinth Locator. So it's a website where you can look at labyrinths all over the world. So as you travel, you can stop in, but they're magical for you to quiet your mind, move your body, and get into a state of gratitude, setting intentions. And of course, we use the infinity symbol because life is infinitely stress, anger, war, division. And so again, you have to kind of not put your head in the sand, but you can add positive energy by stopping yourself and focusing on what is going well. And certainly that can be a challenge.
Number of things to identify here. I'm going to work my way back. The labyrinth. We coincidentally are from the same town. I mean, I talk to people around the world. We just happen to be from the same town. Have you been to the one that's in Setauket, Stony Brook, that labyrinth?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What is the magic there? What's the deal? There's stones, you walk in, a certain pattern. Then sometimes in this particular one, there's a seating area when you get to the end of it. What's the deal with that?
Well, I think anything. So when my son and I built it, it was that intention of love. So every boulder I placed, we just created this place of peace. And that's all by intention. That's all by, that's what I wanted people to feel and know. So as you're creating those spaces, you're kind of really pushing negativity and we call it a grid. We do use crystals to grid, but really it's commanding that negativity that can get stuck energetically away from that space and place. And so that's what we did here. And we walk it and we clear it and we have meditation benches. But what a beautiful space for people to quiet their mind.
Sure.
And so again, the magic is in that intention always. And so that's what we really need to do as humans every day. We know there will always be better and there will always be worse. And so sometimes life rolls out. So we have greater appreciation, a larger perspective, but I need that armor. Just like I set that intention in the labyrinth, I need to set that intention for my day. I need to command that negativity, that worry, that stress to kind of leave. And I do that every day. Those are things that I have practices besides waking up and be grateful for. Again, shelter, heat, food, water, because certainly there are places and people in the world that don't have that. And so I recognize that.
I do the same thing. I woke up this morning, wrote in my gratitude journal, and even going back to basics. I've been doing this for quite some time now, but sometimes you just say, well, I think I wrote this morning, a cup of tea, this warm cup of tea that makes me feel good on a cold day. Just there's something magical about it. I don't know what it is, but I'm grateful for it. Something you said a few moments ago that to me seems like one of the benefits of this whole look at it through the lens of positivity, that when you're in the practice of doing that, side note, not to say that stuff is going to happen, but when it does happen, it's not as much of a big deal when you're riding that positive train. You know, something presents, you may be like, what? And then, oh, it's all right, no problem. Whereby prior to having that mindset, it may rock your world, the same exact thing. And it could take days until the dust settles and you're feeling like you got a grip on it. Do you find that that's one of the benefits here?
I do. And I think that's the wisdom of age. Certainly as we go through this life and this process, we experience, all things. And I really think that's the
what? I'm going to
purpose of
disagree with you. I never do this, but I'm going to say it.
Okay.
And this is based on my journey. That, I'm old, whatever.
Yeah.
You don't agree with me. You don't have to say, the experience. I've only experienced what you just said, of rolling in the positive side a few years ago. It's not the lifelong journey that got me there. Prior to that, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I'd be like, what the hell? And days would go by. Now I'm like, oh, what? And 10 minutes later, it's not a big deal. So I don't want to say it's a life of experience. It was the mindset shift and the realization of resilience. Because once you go over one boulder, then the next, and it's like, I got this. That's just me. I'd like to say, well, I've dealt with a lot in my life, and now I know it was an intentional shift of mindset.
Well, and I'm going to add to that. So often we learn, right, how to behave, make decisions based on the examples in our lives. So we're watching. That's really how we behave often. We either behave similarly or completely opposite. Mm-hmm. So we have people come in and out of our lives to model. Now, I have to go back to mass consciousness. Mass consciousness, the energy of Earth was negative. It still is. However, that was being fed. And that's really all we could see. That was really what we saw. And so we couldn't act any other way. It was very rare for us to jolt out of it. But now consciousness has been shifting. The energy of Earth, I can see it on the tools I use, the Schumann resonance, is changed. So people are jolting out of that fixed state of repeat, autopilot, let's react, let's pour more anger out into the world. So the change is a product of not only our life, our experiences, what we see, the examples in our life, but it's bigger than that. And so we call this period of time the spiritual revolution. But we do have to have a personal shakeup to start to see, not with just our eyes, but with our third eye, to see the bigger picture. And so there has to be some life experience usually to get us into that momentum of seeing the bigger picture. And it can certainly happen younger, right? A child gets sick. I had this great professor when I was in grad school for counseling, and she said, when you're having a family, creating a family, you have so many hopes, dreams, expectations, assumptions of this newborn that's going to just fill the world. And when that starts to not happen, her child was born with Down syndrome. Initially, the fear, the shock, all those dreams, hopes dissipate, and there's a grieving process. So you grieve and go through this process of loss. But then again, life shows you, hey, it's not really as bad as I had thought. But that's what happens to all of us. We all have these grand ideas, expectations, assumptions. It could be about children, relationships, jobs, whatever it is. But it's not often how our mind exactly predicts it. But I'm saying the bigger picture is always leading to the next growth. And that's when I look at that perspective, that Earth is a place of growth. It is a place of emotions. It is a place of releasing judgment. Now, we don't usually release judgment until we're in those shoes. And therefore, we have repeated opportunities to feel, to touch, to experience sickness, death, loss, change, grief. So with that perspective, if I can move it a little quicker, there's really not as much suffering. But I do believe there's great suffering. But how do I not add to the suffering of Earth? I go into a peaceful, quiet state, and then I send out love. Love is the highest vibration. So if I want peace in any part of the world, concerning weather, concerning conflict, instead of adding to the anger, why don't I send prayer? Why don't I send love? But certainly if I'm not in a calm place, it's all static and distortion. So again, I believe everything in the world begins with us, comes back to us, regulating, balancing, moderating. As we know, Earth, usually we go from one extreme to the next. The pendulum goes farly wide. And so if I can find some center balance in that, and again, that comes through experiences of stepping into more and more shoes and emotions. And at some point, Steve, could be young or old, we come to this place of, I can handle it. I can deal with it. I have support, resources, consistent patterns to process these emotions. And I've seen worse and I've seen better.
You mentioned before that the Earth can be negative. Do you feel that we instinctually go to the negative because we're wired that way to keep us safe? So we look at I hate this term, but I'm going to say it, the worst case scenario. We just do it automatically to keep us safe. But invariably, that is a negative view of things.
It is. I mean, I think Earth has, really sunk low, and that worry, that projecting into the future, that repeatedly going into the past and replaying it and beating ourselves up. So who do we judge the most but ourselves? And so I think, that was something we watched, we saw, it existed. Complaining, was just something common. And we're trying to shift that energy from autopilot, because not everybody's like that. Not everybody, goes negative or worries. But on Earth, there is a pattern of worry. And so we have a big, my logo is the hummingbird, because again, my goal is freedom, peace on Earth, freedom as far as flying into a joyful, peaceful state. And I wrote under it, love is spoken here, because I think we need reminders about love. What is love? What does that look like? My next thing is always looking at relationships, and how do we nurture that love? Just like how do we nurture peace on Earth? Those are concepts, things that fill my mind and day. And I feel that's contagious. Just like worry, fear, anger could be contagious. We need the contagious peace, love, harmony to be contagious. And so that's why we create communities to come together, to have these conversations, to help people process their emotions, because sometimes they think they just really messed up, They're not. And when you have that, you wake up, I already messed up, so why even try? Or it looks like it comes so easy for that guy, but no, there was great self-discipline, maybe that you didn't see. So we really just want to clarify things and get people off pedestals, no superiors, no inferiors, just really love yourself, get up, give gratitude, and keep on moving through life, through these negative experiences, because there's value in that. I think, again, it'd be too boring actually if we just, sat around chanting and praying. That's not really how I see Earth.
How can you support somebody with a more positive mindset?
Well, and I think, again, it comes back to being the example. So I think, I'm not going to be able to change my kids, my friends, my colleagues if I'm not living it. So I make a practice of living, waking up, giving gratitude, praying, meditating, exercising, cooking. I have my coaches, we're putting together a cookbook. We want to bring back the love of simple recipes and sharing time and meals. And so again, we have to have models and examples, and that energy will filter out to your family, your community, to the world. But it really just starts with you. You do you, universe does the rest, is our saying here.
Mm. Is it just a mind? And I'm not minimizing it, just a shift in your mindset to start intentionally looking at things in a different way. Would you say that's a starting point?
It is. I mean, I think it's quieting the mind. I do think the mind overplays, exaggerates, whispers of negativity kind of come through. Because again, there's shaky times that we all experience. And so it would be a lie to say I wake up every minute of every day excited. I don't. I have to create those experiences. And sometimes that means doing things I'm not comfortable with. Speaking to you is not something I really wanted to do in my mind. But I know this is so enjoyable. We hang up, I'm exhilarated. I feel high. I feel wow to talk about these topics, to share these topics. So the mind can be devious and kind of let you think something, you don't want to do that, don't do that. And I'm saying sometimes move through that, quiet the mind, go to the heart. My heart knows talking about peace is a great topic. This is something we need to share, and that will be contagious. But my mind certainly does not say that.
Well, even before we got on here today, you came on and I said, hey, how's it going? And you said, fantastic. Everything's great. I'm feeling great. Great morning. I felt that energy. I really did. It was like, Colleen, it was like almost a slap in the face in a good way. And just seeing the light coming in from the side there. You mentioned your logo includes a hummingbird, right?
Yes.
Okay. Are you aware of songs, I think, in music all the time that are about hummingbirds? And I just brought up the lyrics, and I never thought of it to look until you mentioned it. So I'm going to share them real quick. Seals and Crofts, Hummingbird, came out in the early to mid 70s. Hummingbird, don't fly away. Have you noticed the days somehow keep getting longer, and the spirit voices whisper in us all? Haven't you noticed the rays? The spirit sun is stronger, and a new day is dawning for us all. So that's one song about hummingbirds. Then another one by Metro Boomin, contemporary artist. The song came out literally a couple of years ago. Hummingbird, summer song. Has it brought my life back? Hanging in the balance, have you brought the light back?
Beautiful.
It's almost as if that you probably didn't even realize, what's going on with the hummingbird. There's something there.
There is something there. And, when I train coaches to create their own businesses, I have them design their own logos because, again, it's this picture that draws people. And I knew I wanted a bird, but I had never investigated songs or meaning behind hummingbird. And I just knew it's this freedom. It's this joy, peace, love. And people will say, I found you because of the hummingbird.
Oh my gosh. That's not just a coincidence. That's a reason. They felt something coming from that hummingbird, that logo. All logos are different. And when I think of it, why would a hummingbird be sad? It goes from flower to flower. It's doing its thing. It's actually helping us in terms of pollination, on and on and on. Always great talking with you. How do we find you?
InfiniteHealingAndHealth.com. We're in Middletown, New Jersey, but we have a variety of services, Reiki classes to do virtually. And so we're creating communities around the US as well. So again, our website, InfiniteHealingAndHealth.com, will have a wealth of information, ideas, and talk about our bigger events as well. With spring and summer, we have huge events to gather like-minded people to spread that peace into the world.
Love it. Beautiful. And I'm setting the intention when the snow melts, that labyrinth that used to be, well, is where you used to live and near me, I need to visit it. Now I see it in a whole different light. I never got it. It's like, hey, that's really cool. And it was a nice seating area, but there's way more. And I never even thought of, somebody set intention when they built that. And I'm sure it was a bunch of people that did it. So I appreciate that. Always love talking with you, Colleen.
Excellent. Thanks, Steve.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.